So before we dive into the transfers of how Newcastle can spend their money, we've got to understand what they've got to do. Manchester City spent a bit of time, between their takeover and winning their Premier League title in terms of poor signings, in terms of moving it around and making sure they had a true identity with the club. Newcastle United, of course, have been taken over by PIF, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. They'll take a controlling 80% stake in Newcastle with a deal worth $300 million. Newcastle are expected to overhaul their footballing operations. This is something that City have done really well, creating the City Group, creating a number of clubs around the world or buying a number of clubs around the world to feed into the Manchester City project. This is something I feel that Newcastle may need to do if they want to start to dominate the Premier League. One guy that they could bring in to help this out is, of course, ex-former head of football at Red Bull, Ralf Rangnick. His complete title there at Red Bull was head of sport and development soccer at Red Bull. So he took over the entire collection of Red Bull clubs in Brazil, of course, clubs in Austria, in Germany, and controlled their style and what they wanted to do. That's someone that you'd instantly look to bring in and could help Newcastle United. In terms of his previous roles and jobs, managed as well as been head of director of football, currently is working over at Lokomotiv Moscow, so someone he can pull in. Ralf Rangnick's style is Gegen pressing. High-level attacking football with a lot of pressure high up the pitch to win the ball back, transition quickly, and score goals. Ralf Rangnick is known for his 4-2-2 or 4-2-4 goals, expansive style. In terms of managers that have, in terms of worked under him, or he's helped to get to the forefront. The biggest one, Julian Nagelsmann, current Bayern Munich manager. But other managers who are credited in influencing or being influenced by Ralf Rangnick include the likes of Thomas Tuchel, Ralph Hasenhüttl, and of course Jurgen Klopp. Would be a perfect way to kickstart the revolution at Newcastle. His signings would be young players that are geared to be playing this high press, high exciting, high octane energy style. In terms of managers that have been linked, obviously Ralf Rangnick, if he would come in, could manage the club till the end of the season. Had a good spell at RB Leipzig before Nagelsmann came in after Hasenhüttl left. But you're looking at the likes of course, Graham Potter, after doing a great job at Brighton at the moment. Antonio Conte, following his league title in Serie A, would instantly get success, maybe not fit Rangnick's model. But also the likes of Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard could be two names to bring in there. But I'd personally go with Ralf Rangnick for the rest of this season, then bringing in Graham Potter at the end of the season to spend that cash, go through the summer and bring players in. But anyway, guys, let's dive into what players Newcastle need. I think if we do look at the current squad, there is certain holes in there. I think, looking at the back four, I think looking at midfield, I think looking at attacking midfield and looking up front, there is a bit of a lack of depth in there for Newcastle United. They've been linked with a number of different players from different clubs. But let's move through. Let's start with defence of players they could look to kind of bring in, maybe with a Graham Potter as manager or Ralf Rangnick as a manager. Very flexible in terms of the system and style. Graham Potter would be. Ralf Rangnick would probably stick to this 4-4-2 shape to start things off. So first and foremost, in terms of centre-halves, a player that's been linked many, many times to a host of, top clubs, during his career is James Tarkowski. And I think he'd be a signing that could set the trend for players to come to Newcastle United. A player that's ranked in the 98th percentile for aerial duels contested and aerial duel success over the last year. A great physical defender who isn't that bad on the ball as well. I'd say he's a player that kind of plays those balls into the channels quite well. And under Ralf Rangnick, that's kind of what they would look for. They'd look for the forwards to make those runs into those areas. Then those wide players would move into number 10. That's kind of the system and how it would shape up. James Tarkowski and Lascelles could be a good kind of like strong English core to their defence. Other centre-halves that they could be looking at, the likes of Sven Botman. A top quality centre-half playing for Lille in Liga at the moment, and I think he needs to take his next step in his career. He's a physical defender, tall, strong, will be perfect in the Premier League. The biggest thing with him is his ability on the ball, which would fit both Rangnick's philosophy and Graham Potter's philosophy as well. Could be a slightly tweak in there. Other players that obviously could be on the move very, very soon. The likes of Eric Bailly, who've been heavily linked at the moment to a move to Newcastle United, could come in, 27 years old, would get the starting berth. Hasn't really had a massive amount of minutes in a single season so far to his career to date. 2,500 minute season is yet to be achieved. So that is the issue for signing someone like Eric Bailly. Does he have that long-term ability to play a full season versus a Tarkowski that's kind of done it in the Premier League and got the job done? Andres Christensen could be another interesting one as well. Chelsea have obviously got so much talent at the back with Trevor Chalobah's kind of emergence as a ball-playing centre-half for them in that defensive sense. Malanga Sarr's in there. You've got the likes of Azpilicueta, Rudiger. Reece James has had a little spell at centre-half. I imagine Ben Chilwell could play there as well, and Thiago Silva. There's quite a lot of depth there, so maybe Christensen, if Newcastle are willing to splash the cash. Chelsea may be looking to sell there. But let's jump back to our teams. At the moment, we've just brought in Tarkowski with our cash. Let's continue to kind of fly through the midfield. There's a few players in midfield that they could be looking to get. Let's flip back over to SofaScore, have a look at some midfielders in there. So, if you were to kind of go completely out the box, and look to kind of get a data player, Nicolas Dominguez for Bologna. It's a player that we've highlighted previously. It's a player that can play, can win tackles. He's averaging 5.2 tackles per interceptions per 90, in Serie A this season, but also 2.3 shot creating actions. So you're looking at a midfielder that could play a defensive role, but also could contribute going forward. 92% pass accuracy against Lazio. Won 5 out of his 5 tackles and made 2 interceptions. So a player that could come in and do a job for Newcastle. But looking at players that they've been heavily linked to, that they could realistically bring to St James's Park. I think we're looking at the likes of Aaron Ramsey coming into midfield. You could also, the likes of Jesse Lingard, whose contract expires at the end of the season, potentially playing Jesse as a second striker, dropping Joe Willock to that deeper position. Also looking at the likes of Donny van der Beek, who obviously at Manchester United isn't getting the game time at the moment, could be a player that they look at as well that's already got the kind of that a little bit of Premier League experience in there. So that's kind of the midfield, potentially Willock, Ramsey. I think there's other players that could be brought in there. Haidara, that plays for RB Leipzig, would be a perfect Premier League midfielder, capable of playing as a box-to-box midfielder, a wing-back, understands that Red Bull model with Rangnick. It's going to be an aggressive, gegenpressing, forward-thinking style of football. But let's move forward to kind of other players that have been linked with Newcastle United. There's a certain player that plays for Barcelona that seems to have been, they've been wanting to move him on for a long time. That is Philippe Coutinho. I think he's a player that is acquirable. Barcelona need the cash. Coutinho would want to move back to the Premier League. I think he was very, very good for Liverpool in the Premier League, kind of operating as a bit of a wide playmaker in Ralf Rangnick's side, kind of moving inside as kind of the fullbacks push on. That'll very much be the style under Ralf Rangnick for the near future. But in terms of Coutinho, obviously would provide that creativity in midfield. You're linking that with maybe the directness of Saint-Maximin and throwing a striker in that could be very much achievable in Icardi. Icardi's been at PSG for a few seasons now, but hasn't quite, become the number one. With Messi being signed in the summer as well, the front line is geared for too many attackers. Di Maria's in there. You've got Messi in there, Mbappe's in there. And of course, Neymar. So there's a lot of quality there. But, looking at Icardi's goal record across his league career, he's averaging 0.79 goal or assists per 90, which is very, very good. And at PSG, it's even better at 0.89 goals or assists per 90. And Icardi very much could be that statement signing. That player that you look at and you think, with PSG, with Man City as well, what did they do? They brought in Robinho early doors. You think Icardi could be that guy for PSG. We take the amount of games that he's playing just isn't quite enough for him. 11 starts last season, still directly involved in 10 goals in 11 starts, which is decent numbers. Previously in the 19-20 season, again, only 14 starts, but 12 goals and 2 assists. He's a player that needs to maybe move on right now, and he's a type of poacher that could be very, very good in the Prem, and kind of uses his ability to find the back of the net. And with Newcastle creating the way that they could create with Coutinho, with Maximin coming in, and Icardi very much being that last line poacher, like Ralf Rangnick used Timo Werner, that could be quite nice. But as well, up front, Anthony Martial could be an option for Newcastle if Man United want to sell as well. And having that forward line of Coutinho, St-Maximin and Icardi would be very, very exciting for the Premier League. But I think the big thing with Newcastle, as much as we look at these players that maybe washed in a sense, your Coutinhos, are they up to the level of playing at that top level anymore? Is Icardi at that top level anymore? Can Martial put in another season like he did in Ollie's first campaign where he was simply fantastic? Then the big thing for Newcastle United in this system, in this shape, getting with the top level of European football is fullbacks. And I think, looking at their right back and left back, that's a massive area that I would address. It's not exciting, it's not interesting, but at the same time, bringing in the likes of Max Aarons for Norwich City, who's been brilliant in the Premier League so far, being Norwich's probably best player by a country mile. He's been the most creative. He's looked like he's capable of, unlocking the door. He's someone that is young, is English, would fit the model perfectly in terms of what, maybe you look at what City did well or what a Tottenham have done well in the past or a Man City is kind of get those English players in. And Max Aarons is a perfect player that could provide a lot of attacking thrust for Newcastle United out wide, getting into the final third as the wide players narrow. Max Aarons on the overlap. And the other one that we kind of recommend for left back for Newcastle United that might not cost too much money, Borna Souza from Stuttgart, left back, very, very forward thinking, very, very attacking in the Bundesliga this season. 3 assists in 7 games, creating 2.1 chances per game, putting on average 2.6 accurate crosses into the box. That is very, very decent numbers, and we can see how high he gets up the pitch. And that would be the style that Ralf Rangnick would bring to Newcastle United, is having the narrowness of the 2 forwards in there, but also the attacking structure of the wing backs getting super, super high, kind of that magic box Brazilian vibe in there for Newcastle United, but very much an attacking lineup, and the players that they could acquire and they could bring in. I think is not too far away from where it might be, bringing those guys in, but it will take time. And the big thing with City is that took time. That took Mark Hughes. That took a bit of transition in there. That took a lot of signings that kind of failed. But then when you're looking at Roberto Mancini and him coming in and him changing the attitude and atmosphere, that could be quite interesting. Just finally, one other player that I think Newcastle should make their number one priority, in my opinion, is bringing back Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney came through, spent a bit of time at Newcastle after being at Northampton. Didn't really get the game time. But I think what we're seeing in the Premier League so far this season is a player that's more than capable of dropping off the line, creating, goal scoring. I think he's a top footballer, and I think he'll have unfinished business at Newcastle. He's someone that they could acquire for 30, 40 million quid, 50 million quid maybe. Obviously, you're not going to put too much into that bracket, but very much is ready for the Premier League right now and could build a partnership in the short term with a Callum Wilson. I think could be quite good. So there are my thoughts, guys. Do get into the comments below and let me know who you would sign if you had £300 million for Newcastle. Mbappe, Haaland, Messi, Neymar. Let me know. Of course, check out SofaScore below and also subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you next time.